Welcome everybody to our special program on the Haʻikū stairs, its past and future. This will be a two-part program. We're now on part one. And I am Sean Pager, the president of the Friends of Haʻikū Stairs. And with me is Adriel Lam. Adriel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thanks for inviting me on this. My name is Adriel Lam. I am a Kaneohe resident. I was not born here. My longtime Kaneohe family, my parents are missionaries in Taiwan, but we would come back home every so often during the summers, and we'd hang out at my grandmother's garage and look up at the mountains and wonder what was up there, the radar station, hear rumors about what was behind there and all sorts of things. So glad to hear to talk about Haʻikū stairs.
Yeah, I wasn't born in Hawaii either, but we moved here when I was 6 months old and grew up here. And I actually did climb the stairs back in high school in the 80s when it was open and legal. And shortly after that, they closed them. And I've been waiting ever since for them to reopen. Never had a chance to go back. I'm really looking forward to taking my kids there one day, really hoping that'll happen.
Yeah, I've never climbed the stairs. I came back in 2000, heard that it was open, or that people have been climbing the stairs, and first heard about the story of the Haʻikū stairs and the closing of the Omega station, but always wanted to climb the stairs. I know a lot of friends and family who've gone up the stairs, but I want to do it legally, and it's unfortunate that it's been closed for so many years.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. And other people are still going, but
right.
Why can't the people that want to do things right have this opportunity? Speaking of friends, let's say a little bit about the Friends of Haʻikū Stairs,
Okay.
just to explain who our group is, because you've been a member
Right.
since when?
Since, I guess, 2018.
2018,
Right.
okay. And I joined in 2021 when the city first voted to remove them. I was shocked. Why would anyone want to destroy this? But the Friends, if we could have the next slide, please. Friends of Haʻikū Stairs is a nonprofit formed in 1987. So we've been around for a long time and have historically exercised a stewardship role, taking care of the stairs. 1987 is when the stairs were closed, but our group actually had permission to go up on the stairs, which we did for many decades to do maintenance with volunteers. We didn't charge anybody, but we had permission legally to do this. So we were actually a very popular group because we had access. And we went up there and tighten bolts. We would remove plants. Next slide, please. Can show some pictures of our groups in action. Next, yeah, here we are. So that, we would do remove invasive species, haul out trash, take care of the native plants, kind of this stewardship role. And it was just community members volunteering. But later, as the politics shifted and there was a push to remove the stairs, and as I mentioned, even a vote in 2021 by the City Council, we've shifted to more of an advocacy role and kind of now leading the fight to save the stairs from what is, unfortunately, they've been slated for removal by the city, and we are adamantly opposed and really doing everything we can to stop that, including filing a lawsuit, which we did last week. So what are these stairs? Maybe some people have seen them, but other people don't really know what they are. Perhaps we could show a few pictures about
Sure.
that. Have you seen them up close, Adriel?
I've never been up close
You've
to the
never-
stairs, but
okay.
I've seen some beautiful pictures of the stairs and, of course, other people that have been up the stairs.
Right. Well, let's start with just some basic facts on the next slide.
Yeah, I guess if you can see on the slide, it's a 2,900 feet elevation, 2,300 feet vertical rise. We always say 3,922 steps up to the top of the stairs, and a 30% degree climb. So essentially, it is a set of stairs. 38% degrees is not that a steep slope. There are certain portions that are steep, or so I've heard.
Very steep, almost
Very
near
steep.
vertical in sections.
But I've asked people to compare Coco Head and Haʻikū stairs, and I've been on Coco Head. There are some places I feel like I could break a leg very easily. But for the Haʻikū stairs, it's got rails.
Handrails on both sides.
Right, handrails on both sides, and it's a directed path, and it's a path that's already set out for you.
Right. It's quite a bit longer and higher than the Copa
Right.
stairs, as you compared it to. But otherwise, yeah, there's some similarities. Those stairs were also, in fact, slated for demolition,
Right.
and the the group in charge of them, Coconut Coalition, they're kind of our heroes because they rallied the community and were able to save their stairs. So we're really hoping to kind of copy their playbook. And they also, led volunteer effort to restore the stairs. They raised $300,000 and got a lot of donated volunteer labor. So we could do the same thing, and that's kind of what we're hoping for.
Right.
Well, you mentioned the views a little bit. You could just show a few slides quickly, just to get people an idea of what you see up there. So here's one view looking down towards H3 Freeway. The next slide, I think you can see kind of the view over the windward coast. And next one, looking back at the back of the valley. So really in all directions, even the next slide looking north, I believe. Just beauty all around, every direction you stare.
Sean, if I can interject here, because I think we'll get to this in the later segment, it's more than just the natural beauty of the stairs. There's a lot of historical and cultural significance to the Haʻikū Valley and the stairs that brought this together. So, but yes, it is a fantastic asset for our Kaneohe community and for the island as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we hope to get to the history of how the stairs were built and some of the, because they were built during the war, and it's an amazing story of what they were built for and what was achieved. But they've really been part of the community. People have been climbing them at least since the 70s and probably in the 60s or earlier.
Right.
And it's been sort of the lucky...
Yeah, I hear from friends, Boy Scout troops would take their excursion up to the top of the stairs. It was a regular part of life in the community.
Yeah. And not just Boy Scouts or hikers, but also educators took people up there, and cultural practitioners, because it's a chance to see some native plants, which actually the next slide, we can see some of the plants you see. Some really pristine native forests, particularly near the summit, where you can see ohia lehua, and that's lolu palms. Check out the next one, though.
Yeah, what is this plant here?
So these are Trematolobelia. There's two different types shown in the slides. The one on the right is the one to pay attention to, because that is only found in this area, right in the central Mauka slopes of the Ko'olaus, and nowhere else in the world. And that's a picture of one that grew right next to the stairs. You could actually see it blooming.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's no longer there because invasive species have been spreading. And that's one of the things we used to take care of. We used to take care of that plant.
And if you're on the stairs, you wouldn't go off the stairs to tread on those flowers. You'd stay on the stairs.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the great things about the stairs is it's erosion proof. It doesn't have any impact. It's an elevated platform. People are, we'll talk about it in a minute, people are going on other ways up, and if they remove the stairs, of course they won't have that option to go on the stairs. It'll cause much more damage to the forest.
Right.
Okay, so I guess we've said a little bit about the stairs and how beautiful they are and all the amazing things you can see up there. But why are they closed? And why is this an issue that's been kind of hanging around for decades?
So some people say this is a long-standing problem. I would beg to differ that for majority of the years that the stairs has been in existence, it was not a problem. Hikers used to go and check in with the facility, sign a waiver, and they'd go up and down the stairs. It was soon after when the stairs property was transferred over to the city that the city was given an asset but did not manage it, and instead closed it. And the closure caused problems of access. And I think that's where we're here today, is because there was continue not be any managed access, the access found its own way around to the base of the stairs.
People heard about this beautiful staircase. They wanted to climb them. And even the city had repaired them. The crazy thing is the city spent close to $1 million fixing the stairs and then didn't provide access. Now, part of the problem is the land around the stairs is owned by the state, so they didn't actually have that land. It's empty public land. But when you mentioned the Coast Guard station closing, unfortunately, the land got split up, and that's really part of the problem. Is city and state don't always get along. They couldn't work it out. They couldn't solve a simple thing to allow permission. They did have lots of efforts to get to this, and even there was a land swap proposed. The city council voted it down for some reason. So it's sort of a long, tortured story of of promising efforts that somehow fell short time and time again.
Right. I mean, I think people say it's a complex problem. It's actually a very simple problem of getting back to the original access or along similar routes. There's always the excuse that, oh, you got to go through public and private property. There's actually one of the routes, it's only about 100 meters of private property, and that property owner is in support of access to the stairs. So if we can't figure out a way by our public officials to work with other public officials to solve a problem, there's something there. And I'll say in all my years of government service in looking at problems, often the simplest solution cannot be done because of one thing. It's politics. But I'll just leave it at that because that's a more deeper discussion that we do not want to get into here.
Well, it's certainly true that there's been some frustrating, tortured twists and turns in this story, and you're certainly right. I'm sure politics has played its role. Adriel, one of the things, in addition to being a Kaneohe resident and member of the Friends, board member,
right.
You're also on the Kaneohe Neighborhood Board, and even
Yes.
the vice chair of
Right.
the board. The stairs are located in Kaneohe, so that's the community group that,
Right.
or the official representative of the community for the city that is most directly connected to that community where the stairs reside.
Yep.
And can you tell us a little about the neighborhood board's position?
So I've been on the board for 3 years, but before I came on the board, the neighborhood board had already voted to propose support for managed access. In fact, it's also part of the Kaneohe Regional Master Plan.
What does managed access mean?
Managed access is to have a stakeholder that provides a designated route for where people access the stairs, so that the designated route does not affect the community. It goes around the community. And
So it'll go outside the neighborhood.
outside the neighborhood to a designated location where they can ascend the stairs without bothering the neighborhood.
Okay. And you're saying that your neighborhood board had supported that in 2017 in
So
a resolution?
the previous neighborhood board members had proposed a resolution or passed a resolution advocating for managed access back in 2017. When the Board of Water Supply transferred the property over to the city, Parks and Recs, the neighborhood board again, when I came on, again proposed for the city to look at managed access instead of tearing it down.
This is 2020.
In 2022.
Which is why they transferred it to city parks.
Right.
In fact, was under the Caldwell administration.
Right.
That was the goal. They
That was the
put it
goal,
to city parks
right.
to make it a park.
It
It's
wasn't within Board of Water Supply's mission, so they gave it to the city for Parks and Rec
Makes
to
sense.
accomplish the mission.
Totally makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so that's 2020. Has there been any further Kaneohe Neighborhood Board actions related to the stairs since then?
Yeah, so since last year, the neighborhood board has created it's called a PIG, and
Which is the Neighborhood Community Task Force.
which is a little task force, a permitted interaction group to address the issue and hold some meetings for stakeholders, both opponents and supporters of it, to find a solution. And so we've been going around the neighborhood also surveying the local population on what they think of the stairs or how they've been impacted.
And specifically focusing on trespassing is one
Right.
of the main focuses, which we'll talk about hopefully
Yep.
a little later in the program. But so you've been talking to actual people going door to door,
Yes.
and you've been knocking on doors?
Especially in that neighborhood, in the Haʻikū neighborhood. Kokulele, Kauipa Street, up in Lo'ili Street.
Okay. And what have you been finding? What do people say about the stairs when you talk to them?
So, so from the combined numbers, there is 75% in support of the stairs or managed access.
75%, three quarters of the people you've spoken
Right.
to.
Personally, when I've walked around, about 30 households I've gone through, I only found 2 that did not support managed access, but primarily for the reason of one, that it was one of their friends that was affected, and the other was they just didn't want access near their house.
Right.
So if it was away from their house, they would be okay with it, but they don't want to see it near their house.
Which is, in fact, what all the current proposals envision, as
Right.
we'll see in a minute. There are plenty of good access routes that don't go anywhere near anybody's house.
Right.
So yeah, that would solve the problem. Right. But that's really interesting, because those people are even the people opposed, their reasons sound like they've got some compromise room if you satisfy access. And most people, in fact, are in favor of the stairs.
Right.
People who live there.
I even had especially the other day, for neighbors that have had trespassing in the past and they don't get it anymore, they're still in support of managed access.
Right.
They think it is an asset and it should be open for the public.
Right. That's one of the other interesting things I understand from people doing the canvassing is that a lot of the residents say trespassing has actually gone down quite a lot
Right.
in the last few years. More than half the people have told us that, which is really interesting.
And I think I credit to HPD working with the community, and we're trying to get trespassing, redirect people out of the neighborhood, and it's been a collaborative effort.
Right.
But we want to make a solution
Yeah.
that we can work together to provide managed access.
Yeah, and I know the Friends have been involved with that. We have a volunteer contractor that's done some repairs of fences, and we've been looking at getting with the neighborhood board,
Right.
getting a community policing initiative so people can patrol and kind of deter intruders or let people know that the stairs are currently closed or that they shouldn't be going through people's houses. And even looking into installing cameras or other precautions. And we've been trying to work with the HPD and the city to see if we can't solve this problem, because it is a soluble problem. It's there's no reason why people should put up with trespassing,
Right.
but it doesn't mean you have to close the staircase to do
Right.
that, right? It's the stairs aren't trespassing. It's
Right.
it's people who don't have a way to get to the stairs. And I guess your point earlier is if we had access, people wouldn't need to trespass.
Nope.
Which is how it was when I climbed the stairs. I didn't go near anybody's house.
Yeah.
I drove right to the back of the valley. I was at least half a mile from the closest house into the Coast Guard. And there was very little trespassing back then because the Coast Guard provided legal access.
Right. You had a designated route, you went to a control point, and you extend the stairs.
Right. And there was just a little waiver form people would sign to waive liability, and then you were on your way. It wasn't very heavily managed, but it worked back then. And there were no issues. And it was a safe, controlled, and a problem. An amenity to many 20,000 people a year, I believe, climbed.
Right.
20,000 a year went up those stairs, and no problems, no rescues, no serious injuries, no lawsuits.
Right.
Okay, so actually the other interesting thing is, in addition to the canvassing, there was a poll, which I think the next slide will show us a little about. So I can talk about this because I know the Friends are the one that commissioned it, but we didn't do the poll, just to be clear. This was a professional public opinion survey done by industry standards, by a neutral party that had control of the questions and the whole administration. And they found a clear majority, statistically significant samples of Oahu voters. 51% majority support island-wide, want to keep the stairs and would support managed access. And also sampled Native Hawaiians, similar results. The really interesting one is the Windward community, which is primarily Kaneohe, but also includes Kailua and some sections of Waimanalo, I believe. Even bigger majority, people who live windward side, some of those same people maybe who climbed the stairs back in the day or would like to, 55%.
Yeah, and I would say even with windward residents, there's a reluctance to say support for the stairs because we know we don't want to impact our neighbors and we don't want somebody. But the number one question is defining managed access. A lot of people just don't know what that means, and so the default is, well, if I don't understand it, maybe I'm not so in support of it. But when you do explain it to them that it's taken out of the neighborhood, a designated route that goes around it, and provides a control point, it makes sense to people.
Right. Yeah, managed access or access that doesn't disturb neighbors and trespassing, that was definitely a big reason we found when we did the poll. But that wasn't the biggest reason, actually. The next slide will show a little bit. So the number one reason, we asked people who are opposed to the stairs, why are you opposed to the stairs? Why do you want to destroy this amazing resource that people love and would love, and many people have enjoyed and many more people would love to have access to? Safety. Safety is the number one concern, right? So that people think the stairs are dangerous, there's risk of injury, that there are rescues there all the time that are costing taxpayers money and risking first responders' lives, and lawsuits, liability.
Right.
But the reality is a little different.
Right. And you will note at the bottom it says 0 deaths or serious injuries since 1942.
That's 80 years.
80 years. I mean, there are 2 stories out there about deaths, and one of them was someone who was not on the stairs.
Right.
was prohibited from going the stairs, so they're trying to find an alternate route. And there was another one who ascended the stairs in the dark of night when you could not have any assistance to when they got into trouble. He had died of a heart attack. And so that was not the stairs itself, but the person's condition, unfortunately. But when a friend was asking about liability, right? What does that mean? Liability also often comes with negligence, right? Negligence is not managing the stairs. If you don't have management on the stairs, if you're not actively doing things on the stairs, that's negligence.
Right.
And you let people just go up and down unfettered, that is negligence.
Right.
And that's what we want to get away from. We want to manage it and be good stewards of an asset that we have and remove that negligence and remove the liability.
Right. Well, that's a great point, because the record we showed is statistics of a resource that was really not managed. Right? There was nobody supervising people going up there during the time it was legal under the Coast Guard, when 20,000 people a year would climb them. And then later it's been closed and people have been doing it illegally.
Right.
And even so, in all that time, nobody's died, no serious injuries, other than the one gentleman that had a heart attack. No one's died from an accident. But if we were to open the stairs today, the proposal of managed access would be that there would be absolutely better supervision. There would be guided visits.
Right.
There would be a safety briefing, kind of like Hanauma Bay,
Right.
where before you go there, you learn how to protect the reef. And it would also include environmental protection and cultural protocols to be respectful in going to this place. So yeah, we think we could improve the safety record and make things even better with managed access than the status quo, which is already pretty good. Next slide again, just to revisit.
Yeah.
You can see the stairs. It's got handrails, nice, even, no-slip steps. There's a reason why this is probably the safest way you can climb the mountain.
And I think people talk about all these helicopter rescues. I mean, we have them because people are up there and they feel helpless. But if you got management of the stairs, you do have help.
Right.
And you can provide that help without having to go to extremes of bringing in a helicopter or whatever.
Right. Well, just to clarify, there are almost no rescues. I only know one rescue ever that was actually someone rescued on the stairs themselves who got into trouble. It was a big storm. They were stuck there after dark. That was in 2015. But most of the rescues that happen are people trying to get to the stairs, usually from the back way, from Maunalua.
Right.
That gentleman, it was a teenager actually, a really tragic case, who disappeared.
Right.
That's Mokepua. And he couldn't climb the stairs, as you said, legally, so he went up the back way from Maunalua, which is another way to get to the top of that same mountain, and basically stand at the top of the stairs, coming from the back side. And he got lost on that trail because there's no handrails and no staircase, and that's probably where he fell. Really steep and really unsafe conditions. So we're actually closed the safe way from going up the stairs and forced people on this unsafe way where there's been one death already that we know about, and rescues happening all the time. Actually, the next slide can show that. So this is just a survey of publicly reported rescues. And you can see in the last 3 years, almost all the rescues happen on Maunalua side. The ones on the left are rescues on the Kaneohe side. But again, none of them were rescues from people who got in trouble on the stairs themselves.
They're off the path, right?
They're off the path trying to get to them because the stairs are closed and access is closed. So they try to bushwhack at night because they want to evade detection. That's how they get into trouble. And so really, and most of them, again, are going to Maunalua, a much longer, more dangerous trail without handrails and really slippery and scary and easy to get lost. So yeah, it's really kind of silly that we say rescues and safety are concerned, but we've made things actually worse by closing these stairs. But what about the other reasons? Next slide, maybe. Looking to dig a little deeper. So people also think the stairs are too expensive to maintain, and there have been a couple sections that were damaged. In 2015, that same storm when that rescue happened, there was a little landslide caused by Schlaflyra tree, one of those invasive species that we used to remove from the stairs, but now they're growing and causing erosion. And then the idea of invasive species. Again, if we were able to go up there as we used to do, because we lost the Friends of Haʻikū stairs were denied access in 2015, right about the time this incident happened, or 2014, the year before. we were no longer able to do the maintenance, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But we have people, right? You're an engineer.
Right. And now let's say that, some of the concerns of people are like they don't want the stairs to be commercialized. It doesn't have to be commercialized. It just needs to be, it can be self-sustaining. You can charge a fee for people to go up the stairs, because there will be people who want to go the stairs, and they're willing to pay to maintain the stairs and generate enough funds to keep it safe and renovated. It won't be an expensive proposition.
Right. But so what would we charge? I think the proposal was about $50, $100 for tourists.
In that range.
Kama'aina would pay less?
You want to make it available for Kama'aina. That's it'd be more nominal than more maintenance.
Sounds
right.
fair. But what would you say about, because we talked to some residents and they say, you can charge this, but then it's like Hanauma Bay when there's no more reservations or people don't want to pay. They're going to hop the fence and go back to trespassing, and the residents are going to be bothered again. That isn't that a problem? That if you charge fees, you'll just drive people again to the illegal way.
Right. That's part of management. I mean, if there are fence hoppers in Hanauma Bay, you can prosecute them. Same thing as Haʻikū stairs. You will know who is authorized and who is not authorized on the stairs.
Right. And actually, there's a difference. As the next slide we can see. Well, here's a picture. You can see the stairs, but even the next one, it's actually much easier compared to Hanauma Bay, where it's a big area, wide perimeter patrol. Look at the stairs. It's a narrow staircase, less than 3 feet wide in sections, on a very narrow ridge, where there's no way to go around. Right. Once you're on the stairs, you're committed. Right. You can only go up and down.
There are checkpoints and control points. I mean, it's very simple concept of security.
And we talked about how the trespassing is reduced in the last 3 years. There's a reason for that too.
Right.
Because in 2021, HPD was doing stakeouts for a few months.
Right.
And they were right at the base of the stairs. They caught everybody, because everybody's trespassing. They go this way, they go that way.
Right.
They can converge, but they're all going to the base of the stairs.
Right.
You put a guard there, you put HPD backup, you'll catch everyone.
Right.
And they did. And that's why the word got out. People started realizing you're going to get fined. You go Haʻikū stairs, they all go Maunalua now.
Yep.
It's really a huge difference.
Okay.
Okay, well that's a great initial rundown on the issue, and I think we're reaching the end of part 1. So let's close here, and thank you all for listening. We'll talk more in the next episode.
Right.